The Vrax Dominion had ruled the galaxy for so long that even history forgot a time before them. Their banners hung on worlds stretched across 100 star systems, their warships patrolled every border like hungry predators, and their warriors spoke with the voice of command. Every species, from the smallest traders to the strongest warrior clans, bowed their heads when a Vrax passed. Generations grew up believing that the Vrax were undefeatable, unbreakable, unstoppable. They were the alpha of the galaxy, chosen by destiny, worshipped by fear. Children of other species whispered their name at night like a nightmare that might come true. But inside the Vrax capital, fear was forgotten. Arrogance replaced caution. Power replaced humility. And certainty replaced wisdom. Because for 1,000 years, no one had dared challenge them. No empire. No alliance. No species. Until the moment something small, strange, and completely unexpected appeared on their sensors. A single, tiny ship drifting toward their borders. It was small, almost fragile-looking, without any flags or markings. No heat signatures. No weapons. No crew showing on scans. A ghost ship. The Vrax Dominion observed it with confusion first, then amusement. A toy, one warlord laughed. Send a patrol. Bring it in. Let us see who dares float into our territory. The patrol leader, a proud brute with a long scar across his face, launched immediately. Within minutes they reached the strange vessel and surrounded it with 10 fully armed warships. But the little ship did nothing. It didn't run, didn't fight, didn't warn. It allowed itself to be captured like an offering to a god. They escorted it to the capital, paraded it through the sky like a trophy, and displayed it in the main research hall where scientists crowded around it like hungry vultures. The Emperor himself found it hilarious. Humans, he mocked. Old legends. Tales made for children. Most Vrax agreed. Some had heard the old stories, the ancient race called humanity, rumored to have vanished before the Vrax ever reached the stars. The stories said humans fought cosmic horrors in forgotten ages, but the Vrax believed them to be fantasies. How could such weak-looking creatures defeat anything? They looked soft, delicate, fragile. The warlords laughed, pushing the human ship into the scanner chamber. Let us break their technology apart. Let us see what these old myths hide. The scanners powered up. Light washed over the ship. And in the next second, everything died. Every generator. Every engine. Every weapon system. Every satellite orbiting the planet. Every screen. Every ship in the sky. Every reactor in every city. Silence fell like a hammer. Complete, choking silence. The Vrax homeworld plunged into utter darkness. Warlords screamed at technicians, but no device responded. Soldiers slammed buttons, but nothing worked. The entire planet seemed frozen in time. Then, across every dead screen, a faint blue glow appeared, cold, sharp, unnatural. Words formed slowly, like something ancient was waking. You have taken what is not yours. The message repeated on every surface. Walls, windows, even the armor of the soldiers. It appeared everywhere at once, unstoppable, undeniable. Panic crawled through the Vrax ranks. Many shouted for backup. Others demanded answers. The Emperor roared with rage. Find the source. Destroy it. But they couldn't. The message followed them like a whisper inside their bones. You have taken what is not yours. The Vrax Dominion, rulers of the galaxy, had never felt fear so deeply. Then something happened that froze their blood. The stars shifted. Not slowly, instantly. Like someone brushed the night sky with their hand. Constellations twisted. Light bent. Space darkened. And from that darkness, something enormous stepped into reality. A ship. No, a Titan. A warship so massive it blocked half the sky, casting shadows across entire cities. Its surface was pitch black, absorbing light instead of reflecting it. No engines glowed. No weapons flashed. And yet the world felt its presence in every heartbeat. The Axiom Wraith. A name no Vrax had ever heard, but every soul felt its meaning. It hung above their world like a silent god, watching, waiting. The ground trembled as the Emperor stared upward in disbelief. What is that thing? No one answered. They couldn't. Their voices were gone. Their courage melted away. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Vrax Dominion felt helpless. The Axiom Wraith did not speak. Its silence was more terrifying than any threat. The Emperor finally snapped. Launch the fleets. All of them. Destroy that thing. The order echoed across the capital. Thousands of warships launched into the sky, their engines roaring, their weapons charged with the firepower of suns. They rose in formation, surrounding the human warship like swarming hornets. And then they fired. Every missile. Every beam. Every cannon blast. The sky lit up with explosions bright enough to blind a planet. Shockwaves rippled across the clouds. The planet shook. The attack lasted minutes, endless, desperate, furious. When the smoke cleared, the Vrax warlords smiled. Until they realized the truth. The Axiom Wraith hadn't moved. Not a scratch. Not a mark. Not a single ripple in its dark surface. The warlords stared in horror. Impossible, that cannot be, we hit it with everything. Then the human ship responded. No weapons fired. No energy surged. No explosions erupted. Instead, it pulsed. Just once. A soft, gentle ripple of light. Beautiful. Silent. Deadly. Every Vrax ship froze mid-air. Engines stopped. Pilots collapsed. Weapons melted into liquid metal. Ships fell from the sky like dead birds, crashing into oceans and mountains. In less than 3 seconds, the Alpha Fleet, the strongest force in the galaxy, ceased to exist. The Emperor fell back into his throne, shaking. His voice cracked. What are humans? Far above, the Axiom Wraith sent its first message across the ruins of their sky. Return the prisoner. The Vrax stared in confusion. What prisoner? What do they mean? We took nothing. Then the realization struck them with terror. The tiny scout ship. The one they captured. The one they thought belonged to a weak species. They rushed to its chamber, and found it empty. No pilot. No crew. No data. The ship was a decoy. A warning. A test. Humanity had come not because they were angry, but because the Vrax had touched something they should never have touched. And now the humans had arrived to deliver the consequence. The Emperor trembled. They wiped out our fleet without firing a weapon. One warlord whispered, voice filled with dread, if that is their warship, what are their soldiers like? Another muttered, if this is their vessel, then what destroyed their enemies? A third fell to his knees. We should never have touched their property. Above them, the Axiom Wraith drifted silently, blocking the sun, casting the world into shadow. Its presence alone crushed the arrogance that had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years. In that moment, the Vrax Dominion finally understood something horrifying. Humans were not myths. Humans were not weak. Humans were not gone. Humans were a force the galaxy was never meant to provoke. And the Alpha of the galaxy had just met something far above Alpha. For the first time in their long rule, the Vrax Dominion wasn't feared. They were prey. And humans had just arrived to collect what was theirs. The destruction of the Alpha Fleet should have shaken the sky for hours, but the Axiom Wraith did it so quietly, so effortlessly, that the silence which followed felt even more terrifying than the explosions themselves. Smoke still curled from ruins of fallen ships, fires spread across the oceans where warships had crashed, and broken metal rained from the sky like sharp black snow. Yet the human warship just hovered there, still, quiet, watching. The Vrax Dominion had never known quiet. They were a species of noise, roaring engines, marching armies, booming war horns, endless speeches of dominance. But now their entire homeworld felt like a graveyard, and the silence pressed against their chests like a heavy stone. Inside the capital palace, chaos had replaced arrogance. Warlords screamed orders that no one followed. Soldiers rushed through hallways with weapons that no longer worked. Technicians slammed their fists against dead consoles. Every system was still offline, completely dead, every screen locked on the same glowing message. Return the prisoner. But they had no prisoner. No human. No crew member. No pilot. Nothing. The scout vessel they captured had been empty from the beginning. Empty, yet impossibly dangerous. Every time a scientist touched its hull, lights flickered across the city. Every time they tried to scan it, another reactor shut down. Every time they tried to open it, something whispered through their systems. They never understood that the entire ship was a message, one single note in a long, dark melody humanity had been composing for ages. And now the Axiom Wraith demanded it back. The Emperor paced inside his throne room, every step shaking the floor. His gleaming armor, once a symbol of power, felt heavy now, like it belonged to a child pretending to be a king. "How do we answer them?" he shouted. "How do we tell them we have nothing?" No one responded. No one even looked at him. They were too afraid to speak. Finally, General Trass, the oldest and most battle-scarred Vrax warrior, stepped forward. His voice, once thunderous, now sounded like fading smoke. "We must show them we didn't harm it," he whispered. "We must show them we are not their enemies." The Emperor's face twisted. "Not their enemies. We are the Alpha. We do not fear." Trass cut him off, something no Vrax had ever dared do. "You are wrong," he said quietly. "We were Alpha only because humans stayed silent." The room froze. Every soldier felt the truth in those words. It hit them harder than any human weapon. Humans didn't rise because the Vrax fell. The Vrax rose because humans allowed it. The Emperor staggered back as if struck. "You speak treason." "No," Trass whispered. "I speak survival." A soft, unfamiliar sound vibrated through the palace floor. A hum. Gentle at first. Then heavier. Then deeper. As if something enormous was pushing against the air itself. Soldiers ran to the windows, and froze in horror. The Axiom Wraith was descending. Not attacking. Not firing. Just lowering itself toward the capital like a mountain returning to the earth. The sunlight vanished beneath its shadow. The ground trembled as its impossible weight bent gravity itself. The Emperor collapsed to his knees. Why are they coming here? What do they want?" General Trass whispered in a shaking voice. "They warned us. They demanded their prisoner. Now they come to take him and deliver judgment." The ground cracked as the warship's shadow swallowed the entire palace. Dust rose. Air became heavy. It felt like standing under a falling planet. A beam of light shot down from the underbelly of the Axiom Wraith. Not a weapon, something far worse. A door. A figure slowly descended from the beam. Not a giant. Not a monster. Not a demon. A human. A single human. He wore no armor. No helmet. No weapon. Just dark clothing with a simple insignia glowing faintly on his chest, an ancient symbol of Earth, forgotten by the galaxy long ago. Yet his presence hit the Vrax like a storm. Something in his posture, in his silent steps, in the way the dust moved around him, felt too controlled, too precise, too powerful. The palace guards pointed their disabled weapons at him anyway, shaking violently. The human didn't even look at them. Instead, he spoke with a calm voice that echoed through the entire capital, amplified not by technology, but by something deeper, authority. "You have touched human property without permission." The warlords flinched. His voice wasn't loud, yet it carried through every street, every hall, every broken ship. General Trass stepped forward, bowing his head. "We did not know, human. We did not understand what we were dealing with." The human's eyes glowed faintly. Not mechanically. Not artificially. Something inside him remembered war. "You didn't need to understand," he said. "You only needed to respect borders." The Emperor forced himself to stand. "We captured no human. Only an empty ship." The human finally turned to him. And for the first time, the Emperor understood what fear truly meant. Because when the human's eyes locked onto him, the Emperor felt every nightmare he had ever ignored, every threat he had ever mocked, every warning he had ever dismissed. The human stepped closer. "It was never empty," he said softly. A chill swept through the palace. "What do you mean?" the Emperor whispered. The human raised his hand. Suddenly, the captured human scout ship, locked away hundreds of meters below the palace, lit up. Every dead system activated. Every panel glowed. Every surface vibrated with life. The Vrax scientists screamed as the ship's hull dissolved into pure light, lifting into the air like a rising spirit. It drifted upward, phasing through walls and ceilings, until it appeared above the palace, floating next to the human. The ship changed shape. It unfolded like origami, panels shifting, metal bending, light twisting, and from inside it, stepping through a doorway that made no sense, came a second human. This one older, stern, silent, wearing a coat lined with strange marks that shifted like ink in water. The Vrax gasped. So this was the prisoner, the being they captured. But he had never been inside the ship physically. He had been inside its memory, stored as light, consciousness, and data. More advanced than anything the Vrax had imagined. The older human approached them calmly. I gave you one chance, he said. You chose to break it. The Emperor fell to the floor again, shaking violently. Please, we didn't know. The older human looked down at him with something colder than anger. Humans never expect others to understand, he said. Only to listen. Then he turned away, as if bored. The younger human spoke again, his voice softening, but not comforting. You believed you were Alpha because no one challenged you. But power that is not tested is not real. He paused. We are not here to conquer you. A wave of relief washed through the Vrax, but then the human added, we are here to erase your illusion. The ground shook again. The axiom wraith pulsed. A low hum spread across the sky. The Emperor cried out, No, no, please. We surrender. The younger human raised one hand. Your surrender was never the point. And in that single moment, every Vrax understood. Humans hadn't come for revenge. They hadn't come for war. They had come to teach the Dominion a truth it had forgotten. Being Alpha is not about strength. It is about responsibility. The humans began their judgment, and the Vrax Dominion braced for a fate they had never imagined. The palace trembled long after the two humans arrived, one young and calm, the other older with silent eyes that carried centuries of battles. The Vrax Dominion had faced rebellions, invasions, cosmic storms, and mutant beasts in their long history, but nothing had ever shaken their spirit like the quiet presence of these two humans. The younger human stood still, almost gentle, but his voice held an unbreakable truth that made every Vrax soldier flinch without reason. The older human said even less, but somehow his silence felt louder than thunder. The Emperor tried to stand straight, but his legs refused to obey him. His armor shook around his trembling frame. His pride, once the backbone of an entire empire, had cracked in minutes. Why are you here? He whispered, even though he already knew the answer. The younger human slowly walked forward, his boots making soft sounds against the stone floor. Those simple steps made the guards lower their weapons and back away. It wasn't fear of pain, it was fear of being seen, fear of being judged. We came, the younger human said quietly, to retrieve what you took. The older human raised his hand, and the transformed scout ship responded like a living creature, glowing, shifting, breathing. The walls of the palace hummed with ancient frequencies that no Vrax technology had ever recorded. Scientists throughout the capital panicked as their instruments overloaded, some melting under the rush of unknown energy. The ship stopped above the palace, its structure bending into a new shape, sleek, sharp, almost predatory. The Vrax felt as if they were looking at a human soul forged into a weapon. We did not open it, General Trask said quickly. We touched nothing. We meant no disrespect. The younger human stared at him, and the old warrior felt small, like a child standing before a storm. Intention is irrelevant, the human replied. Actions carry weight, even when you do not understand them. Trask lowered his head. Then teach us. The Emperor snapped at him, we do not ask for lessons. Trask turned, fury burning in his old eyes. Then you will die ignorant. For once, the Emperor had no answer. He lowered his gaze like a servant facing his superior. The humans continued watching them, not with hatred, not even with anger, but with something far worse, disappointment. The older human finally spoke, his voice a whisper that echoed through every soul in the palace. You call yourselves Alpha. But strength built on fear is not strength. It is fragility wearing a crown. The words hit the Emperor like a blow. We ruled this galaxy, he muttered weakly. We conquered hundreds of worlds. The older human stepped closer, his gaze cutting through the Emperor's last scraps of pride. Then you conquered nothing real. The Emperor's breath caught. What do you mean? The older human raised 2 fingers, and the entire palace filled with shimmering light. Not physical light, memories. Human memories. Suddenly, every Vrax in the palace saw visions painted across the air. Enormous cosmic beasts devouring stars. Monstrous machines tearing planets apart. Storms of energy ripping civilizations to dust. They saw humans standing against these horrors. Tiny figures wielding impossible courage. They saw human fleets burning in the dark, soldiers dying with fire in their eyes, refusing to surrender even when the universe itself seemed to collapse around them. They saw sacrifice without glory, pain without rest, and strength without pride. The Vrax could barely breathe. The images were too much, even a few seconds felt like drowning in a sea of war and history. When the visions ended, silence choked the room. The older human lowered his hand. We fought nightmares you cannot imagine, he said. We buried enemies that the universe has forgotten. His voice darkened. And we learned that true strength is not about dominance. He pointed toward the Emperor with a calm, steady hand. It is about responsibility. The Emperor felt tears burning behind his eyes. He had never been challenged like this, not by force, but by truth. Why show us these memories? He whispered, shaking. The younger human answered, because the path you walk leads to the same graveyard where our enemies sleep. A cold fear gripped every Vrax soldier. The younger human continued, your arrogance blinds you. Your hunger to dominate makes you reckless. You do not know what lies outside your understanding. The Emperor's voice cracked. Then help us understand. The younger human's eyes softened for the first time. A hint of sadness appeared in his expression. Understanding is a burden, he said. One that cost us everything. The older human turned to the glowing ship above them. But we will show you what arrogance awakens. The ship responded instantly, projecting a massive hologram into the sky above the capital. Every Vrax on the planet looked up in fear as a colossal shape appeared, far larger than the Axiom Wraith. It was a creature, or a machine, or something in between. A thing with wings made of energy, eyes that glowed like dying stars, and a body covered in scars from wars older than any Vrax record. Its very presence twisted the air around it. General Trass whispered, What is that? The younger human replied with a heavy, painful calm, one of the beings we erased from reality. The Vrax stared in horror. Erased? Yes, the older human said. Because killing it was not enough. The Emperor almost collapsed again. You fought that. The younger human nodded. We fought many. The hologram shifted, showing human fleets surrounding the creature. Ships exploded. Worlds burned. Space cracked. Yet the humans kept fighting. Kept pushing. Kept sacrificing. We didn't fight for glory, the older human said. We fought because if we stopped for even one moment, everything would die. The hologram vanished, leaving the sky empty and the world quiet again. The Emperor finally looked at the 2 humans with something the Vrax had never offered anyone. Respect. What do you want from us? He whispered. The younger human walked closer, stopping only a few feet away. We want you to wake up, he said. To understand that ruling through fear does not make you strong. It makes you weak. The Emperor's breathing grew uneven. The younger human leaned in slightly. Strength is not taking what you want. His voice lowered to a whisper that echoed like thunder. Strength is protecting what others cannot. Something inside the Emperor broke. His pride. His arrogance. His false view of himself. All shattered at once. The older human stepped beside his companion. Your empire stands at a crossroads, he said. Choose humility, or be erased like those we destroyed. The young human added, You call yourselves Alpha. But Alpha is not the one who stands on top. He looked toward the sky. Alpha is the one who stands between the darkness and everyone else. The Vracs trembled. They had never heard such words. Never been spoken to like this. Never understood how small they truly were. The older human turned away as if he had said enough. The younger human looked at the Emperor one last time. "We did not come to conquer you." A pause. "We came to save you from becoming what we once had to destroy." And with that, the palace floor trembled again as the Axiom Wraith prepared its next move, one that would change the Vracs' dominion forever. The judgment had only begun. The palace still shook from the judgment spoken by the humans, but for the first time in its long, arrogant history, the vibration didn't come from marching soldiers or roaring engines, it came from fear. Everywhere across the Vracs' homeworld, screens flickered back to life, but none showed local broadcasts or military commands. Instead, every screen displayed the same cold, silent image. The Axiom Wraith floating above the capital like a shadow from another universe. Its black surface absorbed every light around it, bending the sky in unnatural ways, as if it were not made of metal but of a concept the Vracs had no words for. The citizens trembled in their homes. Warlords locked themselves in bunkers. Even the elite warriors, the ones raised from birth to show no weakness, stood frozen on their towers, their claws shaking as they looked at the human ship that had wiped out 1,000 years of dominance in minutes. Inside the palace, the Emperor still knelt on the cold floor, unable to rise. His pride, once heavier than mountains, now felt like sharp stones cutting into his skin. He didn't know how to breathe anymore. His whole life he had been told that Vracs were the apex predators of the galaxy, the rightful rulers, the chosen conquerors. Now he understood how small those words were. How false. The younger human stood quietly before him. Eyes calm but carrying a weight the Emperor could barely look at. Behind him, the older human remained silent, his gaze drifting upward toward the sky as if he were listening to something no Vracs could hear, something ancient and dangerous far beyond the edge of sight. The Emperor finally forced out a whisper, barely audible. Why show us your past? Why burden us with horrors you fought? What purpose does this serve? The younger human did not answer immediately. He walked slowly across the massive hall, touching a cracked pillar with one fingertip. The simple gesture made the stone ripple as if it were liquid. The Vracs soldiers stepped back again, unsure if he had done it intentionally or if the universe itself bent around him. He turned back toward the Emperor, his voice gentle but filled with a sharp edge. "Because ignorance creates monsters," he said. "And arrogance feeds them." The Emperor felt every word stab deeper than any blade. "You believe yourselves alpha because no one challenged you," the human continued. "Not because you earned it." General Trass lowered his head, ashamed. The younger human's voice softened, becoming emotional in a way none of the Vracs expected. "We once thought like you," he said. "We once believed we stood above others. We believed our power meant we were superior." The Vracs listened, breathless. "But the universe does not care who feels powerful," the human said. "It only cares who is prepared when the darkness arrives." The Emperor whispered, "Darkness, like the being you showed us?" The younger human nodded once. "Yes. The relics." At that word, the palace lights dimmed. Even the air felt colder. The older human finally spoke again, his voice deep, tired, burdened. "Those creatures taught us what true power costs. Every victory took a piece of our world. Every sacrifice cut away another part of who we were." His voice trembled, not with fear, but with grief. "We lost entire generations. We lost cities, planets, families," he paused, as if memory itself was too heavy to carry. "We learned that being strong means protecting others, not dominating them." The Vracs absorbed the words slowly. Their entire belief system twisted painfully in their minds. The Emperor felt something he had never felt before, shame that made his heart ache. If we accept what you say," he whispered, "what do we become?" The younger human walked closer, lowering himself so he was eye level with the kneeling Emperor. "You become something better than Alpha," he said softly. "You become responsible." The Emperor's eyes filled with tears he couldn't stop. He didn't understand why this human, this small, soft-skinned creature compared to the giant Vracs, spoke with such power. But he felt the truth in every word. He felt how wrong the Dominion's path had been. And if we do not change, he whispered. The younger human stood up straight, his voice turning sharp again. Then you will fall. Not by our hand, but by the same darkness we fought. The Emperor shivered. But why warn us? Why not let us destroy ourselves? The older human answered with a depth of emotion that shook the palace walls. Because we know what it is like to lose everything. The Emperor's breath caught in his throat. The older human walked forward, and every step carried the weight of a soldier who had buried too many brothers and sisters. We are not here to punish you, he said. We are here to stop you from making the same mistake we once made. A strange rumble passed through the palace. Everyone looked up as the ceiling shimmered. A projection filled the sky again, a star map this time, glowing softly. Red lights marked Vrax-controlled systems. Blue lights marked neutral space. And then, one light pulsed black. Deep. Terrifying. The younger human pointed to it. This is where the relics sleep, he said. This is where we buried the last of them. The Vrax stared in confusion and fear. But that is far from your territory, one warlord said. Far from anyone's. Yes, the human said. Because we pushed them there. We sealed them with everything we had. The black light pulsed again, sending a ripple across the hologram. But when arrogant empires rise, he continued, their noise wakes the universe. The Emperor felt sick. Noise. War, the human whispered. Conquest. Pride. The older human's voice filled the hall again. If the relics wake, no empire will survive. Not yours. Not ours. Not anyone's. The Vrax trembled. Even their strongest warriors looked pale. The younger human stepped forward. This is why we came. He pointed toward the Emperor. To make you understand the weight of your actions. The Emperor looked down, tears dripping onto the floor. He whispered, We have been fools. The younger human gently raised the Emperor's chin. Fools can learn, he said. Tyrants refuse. The Emperor finally broke. He bowed deeply, not because he was forced, not because he was threatened, but because he finally understood. Teach us, he whispered. Show us how to change. How to be more than conquerors. The older human nodded slowly, his tired eyes softening. Then listen well, he said. Because the next step will decide if your empire survives the coming age. At that exact moment, the Axiom Wraith pulsed again. A beam of shimmering light descended into the palace, illuminating the two humans like they were standing between worlds. The younger human looked around the hall, his voice echoing through every Vrax heart. This is your final chance, he said. Choose evolution, or extinction. The hall fell silent. The next words would reshape the Vrax dominion forever as the light from the Axiom Wraith spread across the palace. The air thickened, becoming heavier with every passing breath. Even the strongest Vrax warriors felt pressure building around their hearts, like an invisible hand was gripping their chests, forcing them to acknowledge a truth they had spent centuries ignoring. The Emperor's eyes flickered between the two humans, and he realized, truly realized, for the first time that nothing in his empire, not even his throne, belonged to him anymore. The humans did not claim ownership. They claimed responsibility. And that responsibility was heavier than any crown. The younger human stepped forward, walking with a slow calm that made every sound in the palace disappear. Even the flames of the torches froze, as if afraid to move in his presence. You asked to be taught, he said. But learning requires something your empire has never practiced. The Emperor trembled. What must we do? The younger human's expression softened, not with sympathy, but with weight. You must listen. The Emperor nodded shakily, bowing his head. Then listen to this first truth, the human said. Your greatest enemy was never us, it was your belief that you could not be challenged. Warlords shifted uncomfortably. The words felt like knives made of reason, slicing through their arrogance. You ruled through fear, the human continued. Because fear is easy. It demands no wisdom. His voice deepened, filled with quiet emotion. Real strength demands wisdom. Real leadership demands sacrifice. The Emperor swallowed hard, his voice shaken. We can change. We will change." The younger human studied him for a long moment, searching for honesty behind the words. Then he slowly raised his hand. The palace floor cracked open, not violently, but gently, like a door opening. From the glowing fissure, images rose into the air. Not holograms. Not human memories. Something older. Something universal. The Vraks gasped as visions unfolded before them. They saw themselves. Not as conquerors. But as children, frightened, small, desperate for survival. They saw the early days of the Vrak species, when predators hunted them, when they lived underground, when the universe seemed determined to erase them. They saw their ancestors learn to stand, to fight, to survive. They saw the moment fear became strength, and strength became tyranny. And worst of all, they saw the exact moment their empire shifted from defending itself to dominating everything around it. The Emperor burst into tears. He wasn't crying for the humans. He was crying for his own people. For everything they had lost while believing they were rising. The younger human closed his fist gently, and the visions faded. "You forgot where you came from," he said softly. "So we showed you. That is lesson 1. His voice grew sharper again. "Lesson 2 is harder." The older human finally stepped forward, and even the beams of light seemed to bend around him. His presence felt heavier, older, sadder. "We erased the relics from reality," he said quietly. "But we did not erase the scars they left behind." He raised his hand toward the ceiling. The sky opened, not physically, but like a curtain pulling back, and the Vraks saw the stars above their world shift until a single point of cold darkness emerged. A void. A wound in the universe. A place where light refused to exist. "This," the older human said, "is what remains of our greatest enemy." The room shook with dread. The darkness pulsed like the heartbeat of something that should never awaken. "This creature," he continued, "destroyed civilizations far stronger than yours. Entire galaxies trembled at its coming." The Emperor whispered, How did you stop it?" The older human closed his eyes briefly, as if remembering hurt physically. "By losing more than we could afford." Images flashed, human warships burning, soldiers screaming in silent vacuum, worlds turning black, hope collapsing like dying stars. The Emperor looked away, unable to endure the grief woven into those visions. "Why show us this?" he whispered. The younger human answered, his voice carrying deep emotion. "Because your empire's arrogance echoes the same patterns that awakened them before." The palace fell silent as that truth spread through the Vraks like poison. The younger human then spoke even more softly, "And because if beings like that rise again, we may not be enough to stop them this time." The Emperor's eyes widened. You fear their return." The older human nodded, his face pale and heavy. "Yes." The Vraks gasped at the honesty. No empire in the galaxy had ever heard a human admit fear. But this was not weakness. This was truth spoken by warriors who had faced nightmares that could tear stars apart. "So," the younger human continued, "if your empire spreads chaos, war, and noise across the galaxy again," his voice lowered to a whisper that felt like a blade against the Emperor's throat, "you will wake things even we cannot contain." The Emperor collapsed to both knees this time. "Then, what must we do?" He wasn't asking for survival now. He was asking for redemption. The younger human approached him slowly. "You must stop conquering," he said. "Stop enslaving. Stop pretending you are Alpha." The Emperor's voice broke. "Then what are we?" The younger human placed a hand on his shoulder with surprising gentleness. "You are a species with potential," he said. "But potential can become destruction or salvation." He stepped back. "Choose wisely." The older human raised his hand. The palace trembled again. Not violently, this time, softly. Like a reset button being pressed. Outside, the citizens watched in shock as every weapon factory across the planet powered down permanently. Every warship still intact crumbled as if aging 1,000 years in seconds. Every conquest beacon shut off. Every symbol of Vrak's dominance dissolved into dust. The Emperor cried out, not in pain, but in overwhelming emotion. You dismantled our entire military, The older human nodded. Yes. Because you no longer need it. And because you were never meant to wield such power without understanding its purpose. The Emperor looked up at him through tears. How do we begin again? The younger human turned toward the sky, where the Axiom Wraith waited silently. By remembering this day, he said. Not as your defeat. He looked back at the Emperor. But as the day you met the truth. The younger human's voice grew softer, almost gentle, yet carrying infinite depth. We did not come to erase you. A pause. We came to give you a future. For the first time in millennia, the Vrax Dominion bowed not out of fear, but out of understanding. And for the first time since the Relic Wars, the humans allowed themselves a small breath of hope. The Vrax homeworld had fallen silent, not the silence of defeat, not the silence of destruction, but the silence of a civilization seeing itself for the first time. Every tower, every palace, every battlefield, every command center across the planet echoed with the same heavy truth. The dominion they built on arrogance had collapsed in a single day, and strangely, they were still alive. The Axiom Wraith hovered above like a second moon, its shadow stretching across oceans and continents. People across the world stared upward with fear, awe, and an emotion no Vrax had ever felt toward another species: respect. In the palace, the Emperor struggled to stand on trembling legs. His armor felt too heavy now, not because of its metal, but because it carried the weight of his old beliefs. He looked at the two humans, one young, one old, standing quietly beneath the beam of light that connected them to the ship above. For a long moment, no one spoke. Even the wind outside seemed afraid to disturb the moment. Finally, the Emperor whispered, "If we are to begin again, if we are to rebuild without cruelty, how do we protect ourselves? How do we survive without the strength we once relied upon?" The younger human shook his head slowly. "You believe strength is what you lost today," he said. "But what you actually lost was the illusion." His voice reached every Vrax in the hall, soft but powerful. Strength was never found in your armies, or your fleets, or your fear. He paused, letting the words settle deep into their bones. Real strength begins with humility. General Trask stepped forward. The old warrior had lived his whole life on battlefields, raising soldiers, conquering worlds. But now his eyes held something new, wisdom born from being shattered. "We understand," he said. "We have lived blind. If we change, will the galaxy forgive us?" The older human finally turned his tired gaze toward him. "Forgiveness is not something you wait for," he said. "It is something you earn." The Emperor lowered his head again. "And, humanity, will humans forgive us?" The younger human exchanged a glance with his elder, then stepped closer. His voice softened in a way no Vrax expected from a member of a species capable of erasing empires. "We are not your enemies," he said gently. "We have never been." The Emperor's throat tightened. "But you obliterated our fleets, erased our armies, destroyed our symbols. We destroyed what kept you blind," the younger human said. "But we did not destroy you." The Emperor trembled. The older human stepped forward now, his tired voice carrying centuries of memory. "When the Relics War began," he said, "we lost far more than armies. We lost history. We lost identity. We lost trust in the universe." He closed his eyes as if remembering names that had been gone for ages. "We survived only because we learned to grow from loss." The younger human added, "Now it is your turn." Outside, across the planet, millions of Vrax citizens gathered in the streets. Screens everywhere broadcast what happened in the palace. Children clung to their parents in fear. Elders wept silently. Soldiers knelt and placed their weapons on the ground, unsure how to be warriors in a world where their weapons no longer defined them. The Emperor looked at the glowing fissure in the palace floor, the one that had shown them their own history, their rise, their corruption. He whispered, "We want to become more than we were." The younger human nodded. "Then listen to your people. Build for them, not for your ego." His voice deepened with emotion. "Protect them, not imprison them." The Emperor nodded, tears dripping onto the stone. "Teach us," he whispered. "Help us not repeat the mistakes of our past." The older human exhaled slowly, as if releasing a breath he had held for centuries. "Then hear this final truth," he said. "You cannot undo your past, but you can define your future." Suddenly, the light around them shifted. The axiom wraith pulsed with a deep, resonant hum. The palace windows shattered outward, not violently, but as if touched by a soft wave of energy. The hum traveled across the planet. Every Vrax felt it in their bones. It wasn't a threat. It was a warning. A promise. A reminder. The younger human pointed to the sky. "Your future begins the moment we leave." The Emperor looked confused. "Leave? But, you guided us. You could teach us so much more." The young human shook his head. "If we stay," he said, "you will build your empire based on fear of us." His voice softened. "If we leave, you will build it based on belief in yourselves." The older human stepped into the beam of light. Space around him rippled like water. "We gave you knowledge," he said. "We showed you the cost of arrogance. And we erased the weapons that made you dangerous." He paused. "Now we give you one last gift." The Emperor held his breath. "Freedom," the older human said. "Freedom from your past." The axiom wraith hummed again, and a wave of gentle energy washed across the planet. The scars from fallen warships dissolved. Burned buildings repaired themselves with glowing matter. Broken infrastructure healed as if time reversed itself. The Vrax gasped, crying out in disbelief. The world was being reset, not to erase the lesson, but to give them a clean ground to build upon. The Emperor fell to both knees, sobbing openly. Why show us mercy?" he whispered. The younger human stepped into the light beside the elder. "Because mercy is stronger than fear," he said. "And responsibility is greater than dominance." He gave the Emperor a long, quiet look. "You wanted to be Alpha." The Emperor looked down, ashamed. "Yes, we did." The young human smiled faintly, not mockery, but understanding. "Then learn this," he said. "Alpha is not the one who rules." The beam of light began lifting them back toward the ship. "Alpha is the one who protects." The Emperor's eyes widened. And for the first time in his life, he understood the meaning. The humans rose through the beam, disappearing into the axiom wraith. The warship shifted, its black surface rippling like a living shadow preparing to depart. Across the planet, Vrax citizens watched, silent and humbled. Then, without a sound, the axiom wraith folded into itself, vanishing like a dream dissolving at sunrise. The sky returned to normal. The wind blew again. The world exhaled. The Emperor stood slowly. He raised his head to the sky. And with a trembling voice, he declared words no Vrax ruler had ever spoken before. "From this day forward, we will build not through conquest, but through wisdom." The entire planet listened. Soldiers lowered their weapons. Citizens placed their hands on their hearts. Old warlords wept silently. General Trask stood at the Emperor's side, voice strong and proud. "We are no longer the Alpha of the galaxy," he said. The Emperor nodded. "No," he replied. "We are something better." Across the galaxy, a message spread, carried by trade ships, whispered in markets, repeated in frightened council halls. The Alpha Dominion has fallen and risen again as something new. And far beyond the stars, aboard the axiom wraith, the younger human looked out into the dark void. The older human approached him quietly. "Do you think they will change?" the younger asked. The older human closed his eyes, sensing the echoes of the Vrax world. "Yes," he said softly, "because they have finally seen the truth." The younger human turned to him. "And what is that truth?" The old soldier smiled faintly, a rare, tired smile. "That humanity does not destroy for pride." He touched the cold glass window. "We destroy, to create a future where others don't have to." The stars shimmered as the axiom wraith slipped deeper into the unknown. Behind them, the Vrax Dominion began its first day of a new era, an era shaped not by fear, but by wisdom given through fire. And throughout the galaxy, one phrase echoed with new meaning: they were once Alpha, until humans showed them the reality beyond power.